This week on Full Circle Florida, a time to listen and a time to lead. My one-on-one interview with Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins, his thoughts on the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk and the rise of political violence in America. Plus, is he running for governor in 2026? Our conversation about everything. Plus, former Florida House Speaker Paul Renner on his campaign for governor. And my question, what is Tallahassee doing to solve everyday problems for everyday people? Welcome into Full Circle Florida. He fought for his country in Iraq and Afghanistan, even after he was wounded in combat, shot in the arm, and then later suffered injuries resulting in the amputation of his leg. From the battlefields of the Middle East to the halls of power in Tallahassee, Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins told me after a week like this, it's time to listen and time to lead. I wish circumstances were different. It's a heavy week.
It is.
I want to get your thoughts. I want to start by getting your thoughts on the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the apparent rise of political violence in America.
Well, yesterday was a long day. It was a hard day. I often look to who's out there serving, who's trying to get beyond whatever that moment is. You know, September 10th has new meaning now with September 11th today and the lessons learned. But September 12th is what I really choose to focus on. You know, September 11th, for me, I was in jump school in Fort Benning, Georgia. I just jumped the first time ever the day before, and our whole world changed. You know, what we knew is we were going to go from a nation at peace to a nation at war, and those things that we loved, that we fought for, were going to be put to the test. I don't think September 10th is any different. You know, when I deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq and everywhere else, I didn't go there because I had a problem with that nation or those people. I went there to protect and preserve what I love. Charlie Kirk, honestly, he challenged people. He did. He used his mind and he used his words to challenge people. I believe some of the last words he talked about were God and love and pushing people to be better. Those are principles that matter. Those are the things that we fought for. Those are the things that make America truly what it is. They are, they were, and they always must be worth fighting for. And on September 11th, I think it's important to reflect on what is at risk with this, what was at risk on September 11th, and I hope and pray that we as a nation can remember that we have so much more in common than that which divides us.
We do, and you fought for those principles.
I did.
I was in Iraq for 5 seconds compared to you, but what I saw there was moving because, you know, I witnessed soldiers work 48 straight hours, get maybe an hour,
Yeah.
and then work 48 more straight hours. And it's, to me, it's like, the further we get away from 9/11 and that era of Iraq and Afghanistan, in some ways, I hope we have more clarity about what all that meant and what it was all for. I know that conflict has been questioned and criticized, and that's part of the American way. Mm-hmm. But we don't fear, I don't think, terrorism the way we did in the days and months and even years after that day.
That's right.
The same way we do. But ironically and tragically, I feel like we fear things within our own borders, like what happened with Charlie Kirk and some of these other mass shootings. And I wonder what your thought is on that. I mean, because you did pay a price for freedom here in this country.
Well, and I would pay that price any day for our nation because I do believe in it. You know, Charlie Kirk loved this country. He loved what it stood for, and he wanted to challenge people to think and solve and view things differently. You know, our founding fathers chose words pretty wisely. Our founding documents are amazing. We are out of many one. It's something they chose to focus on. Out of many one. We are the American people. And when people divide us by race, by creed, by color, by gender, by politics, I think we often focus on those negatives. But you know, you have a choice. We are free. And we have a choice to focus on the good, the things that bring us together, or to focus on the rhetoric and the things that divide us. I love this nation. I sacrificed my leg, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. I would deploy today to protect our nation, just as many of the people that I served with would.
As we know, social media warps so much. I think people have the perception that Republicans and Democrats, even in Tallahassee at the state level, have such an acrimonious relationship that they don't talk to each other. Now, I know from my sources and talking to my colleague Forrest Saunders that that's not true.
That's right.
That, yeah, you guys may play a pretty intense tennis match through the media.
That's right.
But that there is talking that happens. There's even, dare I say, friendships that people don't see. Do you think we need to see more of that?
The civil discourse is a fundamental part of our nation. We have to maintain that. It is part of who we are. That has been there since day one. It's something we fought for and challenged ourselves on. Look, the vast majority of the bills that pass in Tallahassee, both sides agree on.
What do you see as the top priorities?
Well, I think if you talk to folks, it's those things that affect their kitchen table. You know, we're still paying a price, I believe, in inflation from COVID. Things have been up in value and cost significantly since then. So how do we make our lives better? What really pertains to our citizens, our people? I pay insurance prices, I pay property tax, I pay for food that the values are going up and up and up. I want to have more money free for my children. They're 10 and 13. You know, I get to be a lieutenant governor, I got to be a Green Beret, but I'm a dad and a husband first and foremost. I think we've got to focus on things that affect that kitchen table, that put more money in our pockets. Property tax is something that I'm laser focused on. I would love to have homesteaded properties, your home, the home you purchase, to be yours when you pay for it. You know, if you are paying rent essentially to the government for perpetuity, you never really own that home. That's the American dream, to own your home. I would love to figure that out, and that's why you see such a strong DOGE effort.
Your resume is not one that looks to be someone who's going to be content being lieutenant governor, and you're kind of reshaping this role. It typically is not as out front as you appear to be. Bottom line, are you going to run for governor in 2026?
Well, I'm going to give you basically the same answer I've given other people. I think we're just over a month now in my role as lieutenant governor, and you are spot on. I am not content to do the lieutenant governor's job as it has been, and that doesn't mean others didn't do a great job. I believe in leadership from the front. I'm a military man. I am who I am. I'm going to run forward to the problem. I want to be there to solve the problems. If we're going to get dressed up and wear a tie every day, let's get something meaningful done. In terms of 26, look, I'm not afraid to step up and lead. I'm not afraid to serve my community however I need to. But it's not about me. It's never a me thing. It's a we thing. Is this what's best for our community, for our state, for my family? And ultimately, if all those things line up, we'll make the decision, and you can't be afraid to serve. There are so many lives dependent on good leadership.
I think we can all agree on that. Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
God bless, my friend.
Next on Full Circle Florida, our political analyst, Dr. Susan MacManus, joins me about the future of free speech in America. Welcome back in here to Full Circle Florida, and joining me right now, our political analyst, Dr. Susan MacManus, as we try to once again make sense of a tragic week in American society. And I'm just wondering, is it safe to be politically outspoken in this country, given what we saw happen this week, whether your views are on one side or the other?
At this point, I think you'd have to say that a lot of people don't think it's safe, because we've had incidents even prior to this that would be political in nature that have involved people and trying to burn somebody's home down or whatever else. We have a series of this kind of action. It's very troubling to people, and what we're learning, of course, is that it's important to hear both sides of things, but the wording that we're using is action-oriented, it triggers behavior, and there's a big violent streak running through that kind of wordage.
Yeah, and I do think, you know, people in a position of influence or power, you would like to think they would be aware and have some responsibility that, you know, words do matter if you do have some weight, regardless of what your views are and whether you agree with what Charlie Kirk had to say or not. Are we going to see campaigns now adjust their strategy in how they present to voters in light of this, or do you think week by week, dare I say, we kind of move on from this and we return to normal and that kind of thing?
100% is going to affect campaigning. At a minimum, it's going to minimize the ability of a candidate to actually personally touch and reach a lot of people, because they are worried about the security at the events. Already we're seeing current Congress members ask for more security. We're seeing people cancel events, town halls, gatherings at different kinds of places, all because of this. But worse than that, Paul, it is going to tamp down people who might have thought, good people who might have thought about running for office next year at a lot of levels, national, state, and local. It's going to make them think twice.
I got to go. I got 5 seconds. Bottom line, polling. Is there any place for this in American society? Please tell me we're in agreement that there's not.
71% of Americans say that politically motivated, dangerous speech is bad.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Dr. Susan MacManus, thank you so much for being here. Next on Full Circle Florida, he's running for governor. Former Florida House Speaker Paul Renner joins me next. Welcome back to Full Circle Florida. He ran the state house in Tallahassee, and now he's running for governor. We speak to decision makers on this show quite often, and this week, former Speaker Paul Renner joined me for a wide-ranging interview on your future and his role. As we go through things, Speaker Renner, you know, Governor DeSantis, he's been rolling out policies that have some pretty attention-grabbing headlines like Alligator Alcatraz, Deportation Depot. They seem designed for the attention. The price tag, $450 million, maybe $215 around there that's already been spent. Taxpayers in Florida fronting that. We'll see if the federal government reimburses the state. There's some questions about that. But if you're elected governor, how is your style going to be? If you roll out policy campaigns, is it going to be more for attention or solution-based policy that lasts longer than a news cycle? Maybe it's not as headline grabbing, but do you think there's a thirst for solutions and not headlines?
Well, look, as speaker, I focused on results. You know, everybody can fight, people campaign based on bumper stickers and social media, but I've delivered results over and over again during my time in the legislature, and especially as speaker. Now, to your question, I do support what the governor's doing. As far as the cost, look, illegal immigration has a huge cost, and it's been going up year after year after year. Free health care, free education, the cost of drugs, gang violence, fentanyl, human trafficking, you name it. So I'm okay with, certainly not only okay, but supportive of what the governor's been trying to do to set up multiple facilities to make sure we're processing these folks who should not be here. As far as the naming goes, look, I'm always going to be focused on, do we have the results right? And certainly there's politics in everything, but I'm going to focus on getting results done, and I've done that time and time again.
Let's talk about something that did pass, that did get results, but I don't know if it was the results that everyone wanted, at least not all at once. This condo safety law that the legislature passed a couple of years ago in response to the Surfside collapse, it led to a lot of assessments for homeowners in condos across the state, especially in South Florida. It has made it unaffordable for some to stay in their homes. Do you believe that legislation was adequately thought through before it was implemented? And what would you do differently as governor to mitigate unintended economic impacts?
Well, like many things, balance is in good policy is sometimes hard in the aftermath of a terrible building collapse with many people dying. And so I think that was a reaction that went, pretty far over to make sure it didn't happen again. And then the legislature did this year pull back somewhat, and we are always looking to make sure that we're treating people fairly. We want them not to have this happen to them, obviously, and where they're living in their condo. But at the same time, if they've ignored things for 20 years, it's hard to ask them to do it all in 1 year to make up for it. So we do have to be balanced and meet the needs of people. So I'll be listening when I'm in areas with condo owners to listen to what their concerns are and make sure we're continuing to make adjustments that make sense.
Let's talk about the insurance market. And I know people that watch this show and watch our news coverage, I mean, we cover this every day because we hear from viewers every day about it. We've heard from state authorities that it's getting better. The insurance industry in Florida is starting to stabilize when it comes to property insurance, but we still hear from viewers who are getting their rates raised or they're getting dropped altogether. What concrete non-political measures do you propose to actually resolve this crisis rather than just managing the perception of it?
Well, we took a big swing at it through removing litigation abuse, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But to your question, another thing we can do today is to expand and promote the My Safe Florida Home Hardening Program. which matches state dollars to what a resident puts up to do new windows, roof tie downs, et cetera. And if you have two homes together, one's hardened and one's unhardened, that hardened home could see savings as much as 60+% in a reduction in their premiums. So it's very helpful, especially for older homes. If it's a newer home, they've already got a lot of that built into their home. But this is a very, very important program. It's bipartisan. It's working very, very well, and it's actually bringing down premiums and protecting our insurance market when hurricanes come. Instead of $100,000 damage, it'll be $10,000, and that's very important.
So, Speaker Renner, you just talked about real problems for real people. I'm curious how you think and what you think about the recent crosswalk controversy. I mean, the state is spending money to pave over crosswalks. Some of them are not political. Some of them are artistic in nature, safety focused in nature. The Daytona International Speedway, a checkered crosswalk that had been there for a while, painted over by the orders of the governor. How do you view this? A lot of, we've heard from people that say, why aren't they prioritizing, other things like fixing infrastructure? You have streets here that flood on a rainy day and not go after the crosswalk headline.
Well, first of all, as Speaker, we had set up committees that focused on a 20, 30-year time horizon, because in a term-limited world, many politicians, let's face it, are looking at what can I do today that scratches the itch on TV or radio that people are talking about, and not the infrastructure that's decaying under our feet. We do have to focus on the future. As far as crosswalks go, look, I don't have all the information the governor has. I just see it as a public safety issue. If I'm coming in, and I'm just thinking of it this way, if I'm coming into an intersection, I want to see left turn lanes, I want to see right turn lanes, especially if someone's already challenged in their driving, not a bunch of different colors and shapes and art. And so, look, I'm all for art, but maybe it needs to go on the side of a wall, not on the street itself. I just see it as a public safety issue.
Okay, I go out, I talk to random people on the streets quite often, sometimes to their annoyance, but they usually talk to me and they're very quite, they're quite nice. People like to open up about what's on their mind. We do really stories here every day and our strategy here is we focus on what we call capturing the voice of residents in the Tampa Bay area and really all over. And I will say one common theme we keep hearing that comes directly from the mouths of our viewers and your voters is that there is this perception gap between the day-to-day struggles of everyday Floridians, whether it's affordable insurance like we talked about or affordable housing, and the priorities that they see coming out of Tallahassee, which often seem more about these cultural clashes and flashpoints than practical solutions. As a gubernatorial candidate, how do you bridge this divide and ensure that the legislative process focuses on real needs rather than what grabs TV attention?
Well, one of the reasons people say that my time as Speaker was so productive is because in the year prior, my counterpart and I in the Senate, we traveled the state and listened. I'm doing that now as a gubernatorial candidate. And I already mentioned, we came in, if you look at the tape of my first speech to the chamber opening day, it was about affordability. We're going to cut taxes. We're going to reform litigation abuse to bring down insurance costs. We're going to help parents with their education, with their kids' education through universal choice. And we're going to help teachers with increased pay, our public school teachers, to help them with the high cost of living. We didn't cause inflation. People in D.C.